Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs, the podcast for burned out, career-minded moms who are ready to stop pretending everything's fine and feel like themselves again. I'm your host, Christy Gamir, burnout coach for moms, licensed therapist, and mom of two. And I'm here to help you reclaim your energy, your identity, and your peace of mind. Whether you're lying awake thinking about the 87 things you didn't get done, or silently resenting the people you love most, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and not so alone. So grab your coffee, hot, cold, or day old, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Christy. Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs. Before we get started, I want to make a quick announcement and let you know about something that I'm very, very excited about. It has always been so important to me to be able to support you moms in a way that works best for you, and that is obviously going to look a bit different for everybody. I do offer coaching, which is incredibly helpful, but depending on your timing and availability, budget, learning style, or just where you are in your journey, you might need something different. So I want to provide you with other options as well. And so therefore, I have been working very hard behind the scenes and have officially added a resource library to my website. So in addition to my full comprehensive burnout course, you will also now find new mini courses on specific topics such as understanding burnout, setting boundaries, time management, communication, resentment, guilt, all the things that we talk about here. So if you do want focused support in just one area, that is now available for you. And then you will also find free resources, short training videos, different kinds of things like that to help you manage some of the most common challenges that working moms face. And this is just the beginning. I will be adding more resources over time. I'm already working on some other things behind the scenes. So please just, visit back, be on the lookout for those things as well. Because my goal is to give you the tools to meet you exactly where you're at. So you can find all of these things on my website at christygamircoaching.com. Just click on the resource library in the menu. The link and the spelling are in the show notes for anybody who wants to check out. Okay, now on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Kate Thornton. Kate is an award-winning meteorologist, earning 2 New York State Emmy Awards with nearly 2 decades of experience forecasting weather across upstate New York. You can catch Kate's forecast every weekday morning on the morning news on NewsChannel 9. Kate's husband is also part of the NewsChannel 9 team as a co-host of Bridge Street, and together they have 3 daughters. Kate has a passion for the weather and explaining the forecast to the NewsChannel 9 viewers. One of her favorite things to do is to visit local schools to share her love for weather and the importance of STEM to young minds. So I am going to guess that pretty much anybody who is from the central New York area is already familiar with Kate. As we just mentioned, she's on the news every day telling us the weather forecast. Plus, for those of you who are active on social media, she's always posting reels and helpful information. She's always making herself available to help us moms in our local moms Facebook group. And even for those who don't know her personally, I'm sure so many feel like they do because she's just, so personable. She's so relatable. And for full transparency, I do want to share that Kate and I do know each other personally. She is one of my dance mom friends. Our oldest kids have danced together for over 7 years now, which just seems so crazy to me that they've been dancing for that long. And so I can just tell you that, she's just such a genuine, supportive mom off screen as well. And when I asked her to be on this podcast, she didn't hesitate. She was just so happy to help because she truly, truly cares about all of you moms. So anyways, I've invited her here today. She's going to share her story as a working mom in a demanding, high visibility career, and specifically how she manages that with caring for her family and her 3 busy girls and her husband. So, Kate, thank you so much for being here today. Yes, I'm so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Do you mind, can you just start by telling us a little bit for the people who, maybe they've only seen you on TV in the mornings, like how would you describe this season of your life right now?
Oh, chaos and exhaustion. It's I'm in a point in my career where just when I think I've reached a good point, it just keeps elevating and evolving. And in business like news, you have to evolve with it because the people, the way are getting their information and their news and everything, you have to go with the time. So it's keeping up with that while also maintaining keeping up with my family and how
Mhm.
demanding it is, and my kids getting older and getting more involved with things, and with it all kind of coming together, it's like my own natural disaster going on at my own hurricane I have to chase and channel.
Mhm. Well, and yeah, and motherhood with a career just in general, I know for so many people it's so chaotic. I mean, you described it as a hurricane, which I feel like that is just so relatable for so many people. But, obviously, on the outside, especially on TV, it does appear like you have had this super successful life. You've obviously done very well in your career. You just won your first two Emmys, which is so exciting. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And then, you have your marriage with your husband and the cutest little girls, and everything just looks so amazing. And I'm just wondering, behind the scenes, what does a typical weekday actually look like for you?
Oh, it's exhausting. Like I said before, my day starts. My alarm goes off at 2 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, 1:45, if we're being honest. That's the first alarm, and then I hit snooze from there depending on what I gotta do. Do I have to shower? Do I not have to shower? If I have to shower, do I have to wash my hair? Do I not have to wash my hair? All that runs through my mind, and then I am out the door by 2:30, 2:45 in the morning, so I can be at work at 3 in the morning. So I'm at work and ready to go and having to be on in the middle of the night when
Oh
most
my
people are
gosh.
sleeping, which is not a normal thing. It's not
Mhm.
normal, but I have to keep reminding myself that that is the sacrifice that I'm making to be able to be present for the demanding afternoon hustle and bustle of my children. If I were single and had no kids, I could go to bed at 5, 6 o'clock and get the 8 to 9 hours of sleep if I wanted to, all
Mhm.
great and everything. But you really have to learn how to prioritize and manage your time wisely, how you're spending your time and commitments outside of work, with work. And you really have to be aware of what you can handle and what you can't, which I'm still struggling with.
Mhm. Well, and
So
I admit. Oh, go ahead. I'm
no,
sorry.
well, just it's my day starts too early, and then I'm home. People will be like, "Well, do you take a nap?" I try to because I'm usually as long as I don't have to do the new news, then I'm done with work by 11:30, and that's when I pick up my 3-year-old from daycare, and then it's just me and her until the older girls come home from school. So I have that little bit of window in the afternoon as long as there's nothing else going on. I can try and sneak in a nap as much as my 3-year-old will let me. And then,
Mhm.
like, go, 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 go. I mean, you and I know the dance mom life very well, where we are basically living our lives at the studio and then also
Mhm.
take care of our other children to get them involved in things. And so it's yeah, it's the I tease that work is my me time. Because it's the
Mhm.
only time where I can just focus on myself and what I need to do and get done and where I don't have to be mom for a moment. And yeah, even though I work with my husband. It's still like my me time.
Mhm. Well, and I imagine, I mean, you talk about the schedule and how early you have to get up, and my gosh, you must be so exhausted. And then on top of
Yeah.
that, like you said, the rest of the world is on a very different schedule. I always feel so bad when us dance moms get chatting about competitions and whatnot. And then you're sort of silent, and then they were like, "Oh wait, I think maybe Kate's sleeping." And then the next day, you are responding to all those messages because your schedule's just like so different. I
I
sometimes
have to
we forget
resist
about that.
not to respond at 2:30 in the morning after I've woken up to all the group texts, missed messages. I'm like, "Oh, what did I miss while I slept?" I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait until at least 6 AM to respond to this."
Well, we appreciate that, and also, if you did respond early, I feel like we sort of deserve it because we're doing it to you on the other end. So, okay, so obviously, you have a very non-traditional daily schedule and routine. When you think back to earlier in your career, I'm curious, like, how things have changed for you since then in the sense of, like, what did you think balance would look like once you made it, once you had kids? And then, I mean, did you find that that did change as you got more established?
Yeah, so, I mean, going way, way back to my early days. So my first job was at Fox 40 WICZ in Binghamton, New York. And I was the weekend meteorologist, and I was an MMJ, or a multimedia journalist, 3 days a week. So I would have to go out and be a news reporter. And if you're an MMJ, that means you're doing it all. You are filming everything. You're doing the interview. There's no camera guy. There's no photographer. You're shooting, you're editing, you're writing, you're putting it all together completely by yourself. I went to school for weather. I did not go to school for journalism. I did that
Mhm.
after the fact because back in the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, when I graduated college, there were no jobs. It was super competitive in the news world. You had to start at the super duper duper small cities. And for weather, you had to be willing to do news because all the
Mhm.
openings were weekend meteorologist, weekday reporting. I was like, I don't know how to report. I don't
Mhm.
know how to. So I had to go back to school and learn that. And that was the how I landed my first job. And at that time, our station was unique where we only had an evening newscast. We didn't have a morning newscast. I was dreamed of making it would be weekday basically where I am now, like doing weekday mornings because I felt like my personality and my delivery matched more of a morning news program as opposed to an evening newscast. But when you're in your early 20s and you're in a tiny city that's also a college town, I mean, you're basically treating it like it's your master's and it's just an extension of college. You're really
Mhm.
using it as training ground to make it to that next step. So that's how it works when you're in news. Not so much now. I feel like a lot of just the way the business has changed, but we're talking 10, 20 years ago. You start at these small cities, and the goal is to keep going up and up and up in market size, in city size, the dream of being New York City, Chicago, LA, national. I never really had those big dreams. I grew up not too far from New York City, and people ask me, "Oh, don't you want to go work at WABC in New York?" And all I'm like, "No, no, that is too much for. I know what I can handle, and I know that would just be too much of a pressure put on."
Mhm.
And being on the national spotlight like that. Like, no, I'm not interested in that. But I knew I wanted to be bigger than Binghamton.
Mhm.
How you start to gain in salary a little bit, although you're still like hardly any money in TV at all. But that's just how you kind of grow and grow and grow. So then once the Syracuse opening came about, it was a great moving up in market size, but still weekends. And not
Mm.
only the best part, not only was I weekends, I was weekend morning and weekend night.
Oh
I did
my goodness.
both shifts. So I was working 12-hour days. I worked 5 to 9 in the morning and then 2:45 to 11:45 at night, Saturday and Sunday. So I had like
Wow.
4 hour turnaround. That was IT's doing that shift for 2 years was the best preparation for motherhood I could have ever had because it trains you to be on and to be able to function on no sleep.
Yeah. Oh
So
my
that
goodness,
was
you really had to hustle.
yeah, that was intense. And
Well,
then
and oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 you're fine.
Well, I was just gonna say, and then to your point, it sounds like you were doing all of that, before kids. And then kids come into the picture and everything, of course, changes again. And
It
so I'm
changed big time after
w-
that. We had
well,
changes in our weather office, we had a retirement, and I saw an opportunity to get off weekends. I was like, "Hello, can I take one of the weekend or weekday spots?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, 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 like, come in, like, put together an audition tape for us." I was like, "But I work here." They're like, "Yeah, yeah, but it's part of it." I had to actually audition for my current job at 8 months pregnant.
oh my
8
gosh.
months I it was so stressful, and we had our changes happen while I was on maternity leave, and my maternity leave at the time, there was no New York State leave. I only had the short-term disability, which was like, what, $800, if that?
Mhm.
I couldn't afford to be out, and not only was all these changes happening, I felt like I had to get back ASAP to get my career back on track and to keep going, climbing all by 6 to 7 weeks postpartum. So there's
Wow.
like all that going on. It was a very, very difficult time in my life
Mhm.
because I was navigating this newborn baby who depended on me for everything, trying to
Mhm.
figure out what this baby needs from me, how to do it, trying to figure out the breastfeeding and all of it. It was just not that summer of 2016 was just it was a whirlwind. It was an absolute whirlwind. Obviously being so grateful and having the new baby was great and having this opportunity to go to weekday mornings, but dealing with the exhaustion, with the new motherhood, the changes in my body and everything, it really messed with me mentally.
Mhm.
Not in a good spot mentally with the postpartum and everything. It was just, I distinctly remember an afternoon crying on my kitchen floor
Oh my
because
goodness.
my boss didn't like the dress I was wearing. They don't like us wearing patterns.
Mhm.
Wore a dress with a pattern. Now he was nicest man ever. So I'm pretty sure this was coming from a higher up
Mhm.
opinion, not necessarily his, just to kind of remind me that they like us wearing patterns. But of course, in my mind, I'm like, I'm so full. I'm postpartum. I can't fit in it. This is the only thing that fits. You know that in Mean Girls when
Yeah.
Regina George is wearing the sweatpants and they're like, you can't wear that. She's like, it's the only thing that fits now. That's what it felt like to me. And that I just it was mm, I look back at that time and that was just mm, a lot of
Yeah.
a
Oh my
lot of changes that I had to work through.
I mean, well,
Then
new
over time.
motherhood is obviously hard, of course, I mean,
Yeah,
when you're a brand new mom, especially when you haven't been through it before, I do
yeah,
feel like there are so many things that nobody tells us about, so many things that we're not prepared for. Like, everybody sort of tells you it's gonna be hard, but until you've actually been in it, you don't really know what hard looks like
yeah, yeah.
until you've, like, had that experience.
Mhm. Just
Yeah, so
2 life changes thrown at you so quickly and all, it was just I did not handle it well at all. I mean, I look back at that time and it was just I'm like, "Wow, I survived."
well,
I
and then once you finally, you went back to work, you said, few weeks later, you were thinking about all of this again. I'm curious, like, what surprised you most about not just about being a mom, but being a mom while maintaining your career?
It was interesting. I had to take on kind of a whole new identity almost. So it was like,
Mhm.
okay, I was, the quirky meteorologist, I was the only girl, try to take that on. But I was like, oh, now I have this other role of mom. And it actually made me approach my job differently
In what
because I
ways?
was I was I was realizing the product and everything then in our news content. I was looking at it in a different lens. I was looking at
Mhm.
it more of not so much like, oh, oh, that headline had a typo and that like little things like that. I saw it more as a consumer and as a mom, how would I relate to this? What do I need to know to get does my kid need to wear a winter coat or the spring coat? Do I put my foot down and tell them no, you're not wearing shorts, it's 20 degrees outside, or do I give it so, becoming a mother, I think it made me a better meteorologist because
Mhm.
I'm able to understand my audience better,
Yeah.
whereas I didn't have that intuition beforehand.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it really just gives you some insights and perspective, like, in a way that maybe the average person isn't necessarily thinking about. I mean, for me, I'm not always gonna fight that battle. I might just let them go out with their shorts in the cold weather, but I
Yeah.
definitely hear what you're saying. So then, um, well, then in terms of not just being a working mom, but
Mhm.
being a mom in such a public-facing career, were there any challenges that you dealt with specifically related to that?
There's part of where, you go to your kids' school events and you have people that recognize you
Yeah.
and you have to kind of tread those waters carefully because you want to protect your privacy a bit and like your kids' privacy, but also you have to be the happy, like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, da da da. But there's a little bit of my mind where I'm like, I'm also here trying to do this with my children, and so it's trying to maintain a little bit of that balance and boundaries, if you will, which can be tricky. And then, of course, I have two young children that, sometimes are not on their best behavior out in public. And so
Mhm.
you get the whole meltdown in Target and you're just
Oh,
looking at me
we've
like,
all been
"Yeah,
there.
yeah, but they're looking at you, charging at me." You have that too. And you're looking around like, oh, I hope no one's recognizing me right now. Or like, I
Mhm.
need to discipline or be stern, whatever. It's the whole like, oh gosh, this person's judging me. I do feel a lot of that when I'm out in public. There's that little bit of added anxiety. And then, and also with being in the public eye, if you will, you don't know who you're going to run into. You don't know what people's intentions are. 9 times out of 10, I would say 9.8 times out of 10,
Mhm.
people are so nice and genuine. But, in the day and age that we live in, you can never be too careful about
Mhm.
anything. So I really try to limit how much I have my kids involved in things. Although my oldest, she's already commercial of everything. She's been on TV since she was born, pretty much, it seems
She
like.
has the personality for it, though.
She really does. And so I try to just kind of protect that a little bit, but also give her some growth to kind of explore, then let her relish in it a little.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just try to do it with a little bit of a protective layer over it too.
Well, and even, you were just talking about, that example of kids having a meltdown in public or, like, in public in a Target or whatnot, and something that again, I think so many moms have experienced, so many moms can personally relate to, but now you're talking about it as, like, multiplied, right? Because you're essentially, on camera, so to speak, like, anytime you leave the house, like, and so you're always being mindful of who might be out there, so it's not just like, "Oh, is this person judging me?" But is this person
Mhm.
going to recognize me and also be judging me? It sounds like you deal with a lot of that. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you work through that? How do you cope with
It's
that for yourself?
It's so hard. So many like what I don't want is to have someone have an interaction with me if I'm just like in a moment and they go back and tell their friends and family, "Oh, I ran into Kate at Target and she is not as nice as she seems on TV." That's
Um,
fear, is that someone's going to catch me in a moment, or I'm going to be overthinking it and maybe overcompensating, and I'm really like, "Wow, that kid, she really is like, stay away from her." That I have that fear of, because I've always been a people pleaser my entire
mhm,
life. It's
mhm,
always been like, "Well, why doesn't this person like me? Why do" everyone goes through that. It all
mhm,
starts when we're kids and going through high school and everything, and that doesn't stop when you're almost 40 either.
mhm,
And so there's that level to it. So it's just really trying to be aware of the situation, aware of your surroundings. And, sometimes they're going to catch me having to tell my kid, "Hey, you're being naughty, no tablet," and having a
mhm,
meltdown. There's been
mhm,
many times where I've had kids like kicking and screaming, and I'm just like, "Kids, man," and they're just like, "Oh, been there." Usually it's the
mhm.
grandparents are like, "Oh, I've been there before." So they're usually in solidarity. I'm just like, yeah, it's like the fireman carry, where
Mhm.
you're trying to drag them, and it's just sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and it's just like, well, it is what it is today.
Well, no, absolutely. And it's interesting too because, you're talking about people pleasing, you're talking about being really mindful of, how you're being portrayed, when you're out in public and whatnot, because you do have an image, that you're trying to protect. But then, of course, on the other side of it, you have been doing these Facebook reels, you have been very active on social media, which I just love watching those. And I feel like with a lot of those, you really, you really keep it real and you show us different parts of your life, including some of the messier parts. And you do that intentionally. You're not just getting caught off guard on a target, right? And so I'm curious, what sort of prompted you to want to show some of those behind the scene moments, even when maybe it does look a little bit messier?
Well, I think, we live in such an age of the influencer phase and stage of Instagram and social media and everything looks so cookie cutter and perfect on paper. People do like Instagram versus reality. Even sometimes the reality of it is maybe not quite so real. So I try to peel back the layer a little bit. Be like, listen, I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm not trying to tell you, comment and I send you this link to these jeans. That's not me. My job is to, okay, if you're interested in how I'm navigating my stage of life, because maybe you relate because you're a working mother also, cool. I'll tell you how I kind of do things and how I screw up also.
Mhm.
But also there's a lot of just the weather information aspect of it. And the daily update to my stories that actually all stemmed from a poll that I took in one of the large Facebook moms groups a couple of years ago, because I was getting so sick and tired of
Mhm.
people posting weather questions and just being so off base and not correct and just not being smart about things. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, why do you think this is okay?" What I was just, especially when it came to winter weather. And so I put a poll out there. I was like, "Hey, shameless plug here. Here I am. I am here. If you what how do you get your information?" Because people will post screenshots of their stock weather app, and
I remember seeing that.
yeah,
I
I
remember
cringe.
this
I'm like,
poll.
"Ah." I'm like, how are you getting information? Are you actually watching me on TV? Do you get your information more? Do you like on a social media aspect, on your apps? Like, how would you best get your information? And what's the best way that I can get that info across to you? And so many people, and I offer
Mhm.
different solutions. And one of the highest ones was like a quick Insta story. Because I think that's what a lot of people do. They pull up their Facebook or their Instagram apps and they're checking their stories first. And I was
Mhm.
like, huh. I'm like, oh, how am I going to work this into my already crammed morning routine? And I have a very limited amount of time. I come in at 3 o'clock. I have to forecast. And then I have to, shocker, newsflash, I do my own hair and makeup. I like to tell the joke. I have two stylists, my right hand and my left hand. And whenever people are like, "Oh, well, they do your hair and makeup for you," I'm like, my hands? Yes, they do." And then my mom buys most of my dresses for me, or I'm buying them secondhand on Poshmark. That's how the glamazon goes on there. But I'm like, "Huh, well, I got time when I'm doing my hair and makeup. I just put the phone," because that was when, like, the whole get ready with me
Mhm.
phase was really starting to pick up. I was like, why don't I just kill two birds with one stone? I'll just put the camera up and I'll just talk and I'll tell people what they need to know in those, 60-second clips or whatever. And then I'll tell them, like, hey, this is what I'm going to be talking about in my newscast later. So I hope you're watching. And then I'll continually post like the most important takeaways of whatever's happening that day, that week, what people are interested in on my actual Facebook page itself. My Instagram, I leave more for like lifestyle stuff. I don't really do
Mhm.
whether posting on there, but like in the actual feed, if you will, besides the stories. And that's where it all came from. And it's really taken off. Like, I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many times I run into people and they say, I just love watching you do your makeup in the morning. I love watching your get ready with me's. I love watching this. I get more comments about that than me being on TV at all.
Mhm.
And it's on a weekly basis. I get at least 2 to 3 a week.
Well, and I will say, so you talk about just this ease for people. So, like, part of my morning routine is I have my youngest one has always been a terrible sleeper. And for years now, I'm just up with him before the rest of the family. And so, part of our routine is we get up together, I get him some breakfast, and then I go sit down with my coffee and my phone. And I pull it up and check my email and do a few things. And as soon as I open social media, there you are giving
Yeah.
us these tips and things that we need to know for the day, and it's right there, and then I don't even have to look it up, and then I'm there telling my husband, like, "Oh, this is what Kate says, this is what's happening."
And
Like,
because I'm doing them at 4 in the morning, they're like it's like at the top of everyone's feed or the little circle is like my face is the first circle usually in people. So it's like easy, get out, go about your day. If you're able to watch me, fantastic. But if you can't, well, at least I did my job by telling you if you need your umbrella or hey, you're gonna be buried under a foot of snow later today.
mhm, mhm. Well, and just even, like, interesting things that aren't even necessarily to the day, like, just the other day, you posted something about, by the end of the month, we're gonna have this much more daylight, and
Oh
I was
yeah.
so like, an extra like, over an hour, I think you had said, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's such a hopeful thing to to look
Well,
forward
we're in
to.
the
We've
dead
had
of
a rough
winter.
winter." Mhm.
When the weather gets like this, once we get to the especially, I mean, we're having one of the winterest winters we've had in, oh
Yeah.
gosh, I think since 2017, 18, 19, somewhere around there. I mean, this is a winter and
Yeah.
it's been a while. And so I think a lot of people are really starting to feel, I know me personally, I'm like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Like we're really getting to the grind here. I look for that optimism and try to find a little bit of positivity to kind of help anyone
Yeah.
get through if they're having a tough time, if they're dealing with the seasonal depression or anything like that. I'm like, well, guess what? In less than a month, it's going to be sunny at 6 o'clock at night. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, no, and I definitely think that that is super helpful because to your point, winters can be so long, and sometimes you just need a little bit of light, a little bit of, hope that it is going to end, that we're gonna be through it soon, and so all of those things I think are, I know they're helpful for me. So I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit. We've been talking a lot about, a lot of the challenges you've been having and things having to do with your career and whatnot. And I'm interested in hearing too about how you are taking care of yourself because you do have so many demands that you're dealing with. So with that in mind, we talk about boundaries all the time. You hear that word everywhere, and that looks different for everybody. And so I'm curious, like, what are some of the boundaries that you've had to put in place in order to take care of yourself and everything that's going on in your life?
One thing that I try to make a priority, I've been not great about it lately, but now just in the last couple weeks, kind of going back in. We are fortunate where we have, I call it closet gym. We have like a
Mhm.
little shift closet that was turned into a makeshift gym. It's not fancy. There's like a treadmill and elliptical and like two hand weights in there, and it's enough space where if I got to do something, I really try to make an effort. My last half hour, so I work my 8 hours. So instead of taking a lunch, in the half
Mhm.
hour lunch, I just work straight through 8 hours, and then that last half hour, I go into closet gym, and then I try,
Mm.
get 20 minutes of whatever in, because I know that's kind of my only opportunity to do that uninterrupted by a tiny human for the rest of the day. Because when I
Mhm.
leave work, I have to go pick up my youngest, and then I'm with her the rest of the day. Now, once everyone is school, that will be different. I will have more opportunity to do all that, but I've been really into kickboxing lately. I had this fall schedule and everything fell off with that. So I just recently just started making that a weekly priority for me to get back to doing because oh, do I love punching stuff that I'm allowed to punch. It's a good release. But also boundaries with not overscheduling myself with work things. Last year I kind of stretched myself a little thin with I love doing school visits. It's my favorite thing. There were times where I overbooked my weeks and things were popping up where I was getting sick or one of my kids was sick and I had a schedule and I just got a little bit. So I've been better about prioritizing, making sure I have enough buffer between school visits to make sure that I'm not overstretching myself, but also not being fair and not being fair to the schools that I've committed to. And then like something comes up and then my schedule's too full to get them.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I've been better about scheduling those, but also making sure that if I am taking on anything that's outside of work hours, that I can actually logistically do. So there were a couple of things last year, as wonderful as they were, sometimes it was a little trickier than I thought because of just coverage, whether because sometimes my husband is busy or he has something going on. And so just trying to juggling. But I mean, it all works out, but um it's just kind of managing my time a little bit, especially on off work time.
Well, and you mentioned, your husband, right? So he's obviously in the same industry, also very demanding. I would imagine. I guess I don't know his routine, but I'm sure it's also probably a little bit crazy. And so, how, now that there are two of you doing that together, how has that
Mhm.
shaped the way that you guys split your responsibilities at home?
Yeah, it's really changed. So 10 years ago when we had my oldest, we worked complete opposite shifts. So it
Mhm.
worked out with I was 3 to noon and he was 3 in the afternoon to midnight. So we didn't need childcare. We didn't need to pay for a sitter or anything like that. So it worked out really well. We didn't really see each other because we didn't have same days off. But so that's how we were able to really split the responsibility there. Well, fast forward, COVID happens. All the way we had to do work completely changed. I was pregnant with my second, and his company that he worked with, his old news station, they restructured everything and laid a whole bunch of people off, including him. And so that really threw a monkey wrench in us because
Mhm.
we were just getting to a point in our careers. I was, doing better in the morning. He was, even though he was on weekends, he was still, making an okay salary and like we were getting to a point, and all of a sudden everything just gets ripped away. And that was a very, very low point for us in our
Mm.
lives, in our marriage. We just had a new baby and just trying to figure everything out, trying to figure out his career because what he thought he was going to do for the rest of his life has now been taken away from him. So
Mm.
that was really, really difficult for us to pivot on. And
Mhm.
it took a few years. It took at least 2 to 3 years and another kid. We had we had another child on top of all to really kind of find our footing again. And now things are finally back on stable ground, I think, within this past year, now that he has a normal job. Because before, when he was doing sports, if he were still doing that to this day, he would not be able to pick up our daughter from dance if he
Mhm.
needed to. He would not be doing the golf league that he likes to do once a week or even the hockey league that he does once a week because he would have to work all of these mornings. So it was like they when it happened, everyone said it'll be a blessing in disguise. It'll be a blessing in disguise. It takes time, but we finally got there. He's working a 9 to 5. He's doing the normal job hours. Now
Mhm.
we had to pay for daycare, but that's okay. We found an amazing daycare person, so
Mhm.
that kinda works out. but we've really been able to manage our home life a whole lot better, I think.
Mhm.
We weren't saving the money on no daycare, but we were able to be home as a family
Yeah.
evenings. We're able to be home together and do things on the weekends. That makes a huge difference. And he's back on TV every single day. Is it sports? No, but he's killing it doing really, really fun stuff on his show though.
Well, and obviously, daycare and the stress of like paying for that, like daycare, I know can be a huge financial stressor for a lot of people, and money is obviously a huge consideration. But to your point, like there's also a lot of value in having time and having the ability to, be with our kids and do the things that we enjoy and things like that. And so, it sounds like you guys have really been able by taking on daycare and maybe having to deal with that, but you're getting all these other benefits too to go along
Yeah.
with that.
Oh,
So the
absolutely.
so then obviously, it's the two of you, managing these things at home, but like what about your support system, right? We talk about how important our support systems are. We can't do everything by ourselves. And so what is your support system like and how important have you found that to be juggling the demands of your life?
Oh, I say it all the time. It's a common phrase. It takes a village. It really does. I don't. My parents do not live locally. They live 3 hours away, and my in-laws live in Florida. So we
Mhm.
don't. We literally have no family nearby. I think I have a cousin who lives up in Fort Drum. you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's it. So by making the connections with our next door neighbors are amazing. Our next door neighbor is like our girl's second mom. I had a second mom who was my babysitter growing up because both
Mhm.
my parents were working parents an hour away, and so Loie is my second mom. I spend more time at her house, and so our next door neighbor has kind of taken on that role for our girls that I had growing up. So without that, I don't think we could survive at all.
Yeah.
They've become like our designated second family, which is amazing. But also, we've gained some amazing connections and friendships through our kids like in dance.
Mhm.
There's been times where I've been in a pickle and I've had to call upon help. Whether I have a friend who's maybe a stay at home mom, I'm like, hey, I got something. I have to do this. I just need like 2 hours to go do you mind if pick up this or do this? And there's been times where, yeah, you've helped me out by
Mhm.
grabbing my oldest from, and like help me transport because I had to do something work related or whatever. And so having that support system in friendships and it's not hard. Or I should say it's not easy to make that. Um and there's so many people that do not have that support system. And
Yeah.
it's through friendship, family, or by hire, whether you have to hire a nanny, 'cause not everyone is privileged to afford that and do that. And so, we're fortunate that we've been able to make those connections because I know many people who don't have that at their disposal.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I do agree with you. I think that that is something that is so important and so many people struggle with. We also don't
Mm,
have a lot of family locally, so I completely get that 100%. And to your point, like it does, it takes it takes a village. Sometimes our village looks a little bit differently,
mhm.
but yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that all us moms are out there, supporting each other and helping each other out because it is so so hard and we are all in it.
Yeah.
So, what is something that you wish more people understood about working moms, specifically in high visibility roles?
We're all just trying to get through day to day just like everyone else.
Mhm.
There are times that are easier than better, obviously. In my role specifically, just because I have to handle the weather, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the
Mhm.
weather. And if you're off by 2 inches of snow, oh, people will be mad about that. you know, and so it's handling that while also trying to juggle the demands of home life. Where okay, a snowstorm is coming. My work life is going to be very busy. Maybe I have to put in longer hours, but oh, guess what? Now my kid's school is also closed.
Yeah.
So it's juggling those two aspects. Whereas my coworkers, they don't have young children in school. They don't have to deal with that. And so I have a
Mhm.
little bit of a different variable and challenges compared to my other amazing men that I work with. They're
Mhm.
fantastic, but I have different challenges than they do.
Yeah.
they don't have young children to take care of. And even our newsroom, there's not many that are parents. Like our whole morning crew, myself and my two co-anchors, all of us have young kids around the same age. So we all kind
Mhm.
of get it, which is great. But yeah, when bad weather happens, that's where things can get a little
Well,
dicey.
and that sort of brings us back to the topic of the support system, right? I would imagine in
Absolutely.
situations like that, that's gonna be incredibly important for you.
Oh yeah, I've
Um,
had to call upon and be like, "Oh, it's a 2-hour delay. Can the girls come to your house and get the bus from your house?" Or and work is great. They probably don't love it, but they're like, "Oh, okay, you got to do what you got to do." Sometimes we have to bring them into work with us. We
yeah.
call it Camp News Channel 9. And
Well, go
yeah,
ahead, I'm sorry.
got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you do, and it sounds like you were so fortunate that your employers are understanding. I mean, like, to your point, I mean, maybe they're not always loving it because
Yeah,
there's
we don't
work
make
to
a
be
habit
done,
out of it.
but
It's like very rarely does it have to happen, but like sometimes
yeah.
it just does. Like, there was one time I had to work a Saturday night. I agreed to it weeks ahead of time, but we didn't have an available babysitter.
Mhm.
And I think my husband was working like a play-by-play game down in Binghamton, so he was gone earning money to pay for dance. And it
Mhm.
was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to work a shift that I don't normally work." And I literally had no one to watch the girls. I was like, "Come on, you're coming with mommy to work." And I
Mm.
stuck them in the conference room. I was like, "Stay here, I'm done recording stuff." And I came in and like I think my youngest drew crayon on the wall and I'm like, "Oh." I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh
boy.
my gosh." But we were able to clean everything up and all that, but it was pretty funny.
And
But
now you have a story to tell.
now I have a story to tell.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have to tell you, this has all been so interesting. And again, I know that so many people, especially in central New York, already are familiar with you and follow you. And I know that they're all going to really appreciate having this little insight into behind the scenes into your life. Before we kind of wrap up, though, I'm wondering where can listeners go to learn more about you and your work? All these like things that we've been talking about, social media and whatnot, people who maybe aren't familiar, where can they go to find those things?
Yeah, if you go to Facebook, just search meteorologist Kate Thornton, and on Instagram, a bit embarrassing. I'm still on the fence of whether I should change my Instagram handle or not because it's my old screen name from when I was in high school with AOL Instant Messenger, which is at Hurricane Chippy.
Mhm.
It was an old high school nickname of mine because of on cheeks
Okay.
and hurricanes because I loved hurricanes, you know. But even if you just look up Kate Thornton Columbia, that's my legal name, you'll find me on there. But the handle is at Hurricane Chippy. You'll
Okay.
find everything I post on there and all that.
Okay, so thank you, and then, of course, I will make sure that that information is available in the show notes for anybody who wants to look up and find Kate and follow Kate. So for the burned out moms who are listening, I'm wondering if there's anything else that you would want them to know. Like, if you could leave them with one final message, one final piece of
Mm.
advice, what would it be?
It may seem like you're falling and crashing, but you're not. As long as there's a roof over your
Mhm.
head, people are eating, people are
Mhm.
clothed, and you survived the day, you survived. Was it perfect? Probably not. How many
Mhm.
perfect days do you get? Maybe one a year at that,
Mhm.
And
Even that seems generous.
if that, as long as you show up for the ones who depend on you, but you got to show up for yourself too. You can't forget about yourself, and don't be afraid to lean on your people if you got people in your corner. And if you don't, um, try and not try, but trying to think. If you don't have that support system, just know you're still doing great. I know it
Mhm.
may not seem like, and it's so cliche. Everyone says it all the time, like, "You're doing great, mama." It's like, "No, I'm not."
No, but it's
You know?
important to hear it. I
It is
mean,
important to hear it. It is, and to give yourself grace. It's something I have to tell myself too. I'm very hard on myself. I can be very flighty and flaky and forgetful, and I get really agitated and annoyed with myself because I feel like then I'm letting down the family unit if I forgot this appointment or forgot to book this and do that and all. And it's just like, you can only handle so much.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's
As long as
important
everyone's still
to
alive at the end of the day, that's a win.
well, and I appreciate you saying that because I do think that it's something that so many people struggle with, and it's important. You talk about it being cliche, but I do think people often forget that, and it's important to have those reminders. And it's just, again, another reminder too that we all sort of struggle. Nobody's lives are perfect. And yeah, we're doing the best we can. And as long as we have a roof over our heads, food in our bellies, clothes on ourselves, on our kids, we're all doing a great job.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, okay. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I know you are like super busy. And then, so I really, really do appreciate it. And then, as always, for the moms who are listening, if any of this resonates, if you found any of the things we talked about today to be helpful or valuable, please share this podcast with any other moms that could use some additional support because we're all in this together.